One, two, three. And recording. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Every Point's a Winner. And, geez, I've got some black rings underneath my eyes. I've got to get some more sleep. Talk about getting more sleep. Hopefully you've had your sleep, because tonight we're going to wake up to a great game. To me, this is the line in the sand as far as where the Bulldogs are and where Penrith are. I think this game is going to tell us the tale of the tape of where we are after round 17 of the NRL, because they're both, one's leading the comp, one's trying to stay inside the 8. So the sports bet have put the Panthers up. It is at Accor Stadium in Sydney, 222, and the Panthers at $1.66. The Bulldogs. Let's have a look at the most important thing here. On every point's a winner, and it's the ins and outs. So in is Brian To'o, Dylan Edwards, pretty much all the state of origin players, Isaiah Yeo, Liam Martin, Nathan Cleary. I've watched the replay for a second time this morning, and I just noticed their defence was phenomenal. They threw everything at the Warriors last week, and which was bad for us because we needed the Warriors to score. But in any case, now they have full strength back. That will help, especially with Liam, Isaiah and Dylan, and the player of the moment is and winger is Brian To'o. What he did in the Origin was a miracle, and he nearly got it for the New South Wales boys. Back in for the Bulldogs is Jethro Rinakama. Well, we haven't heard of him, Jethro Rinakama. I just think of Jethro. Was it Jethro Bodine out of the Beverly Hillbillies? But anyway, Rinakama, we haven't heard of him before. Kurt Mann back, was one of the players of the Origin 2 for Queensland. Matt Burton is back. Max King, also from, let's see, and Stephen Crichton, also from the Origin. And Kingy boy. Okay, let's have a look here. Blake Taff is out. Blake Wilson, Jake Turpin, and Lippo Hopoi is out for Penrith, who had a pretty good game last week. Dane Laurie, he's out. Jack Cole's out. Scott Sorensen must have picked up a little bit of injury after scoring his double last weekend. Must have picked up a little bit of injury after scoring his double last weekend, to the surprise of many. It was big odds. And Trent Tolo is out. So on that note, let's have a look at the lineups after looking at that and see who we got. We've got Connor Tracy up against Dylan Edwards. Bit of experience there to Edwards, as much as I love Tracy. Then we have Jenkins, the man of the moment. Talk about man of the moment. They got both of their wingers have stood up. Thomas Jenkins and Brian To'o. But Jenkins had a big game again last week. He's the man of the moment. Strong, and he's got a nice little sidestep there as well. He's got a bit of a football brain as well. Up against Jacob Kiros, who, interestingly, he's on the wing. But he was no good in the centres a couple of weeks ago. Bronson Sherry up against Isaac Tago. Then we have Casey McLean up against Steve Crichton. Well, bit of a mismatch there, but McLean is a pretty good player. Very good distributor as well. Brian To'o against Marcelo Montoya, who's slowly winning me over. If his ball handling gets a bit better, then he might win me over fully. Blaze Talungi scored a good try last week up against Matt Burton. Toby Sexton up against Cleary. Bit of a mismatch there, but Sexton has been playing above his fighting weight, that's for sure. Max King up against Moses Leota. Big boys there. Mitch Kenny, who played outstanding in a different role last week. Him and was it Schneider? Outstanding, playing out of their positions. But he is one of the best defenders in the game, Mitch Kenny. He's up against Reed Marnie. And then you got Lindsay Smith against Daniel Saluga Fafita, who's got a full spot here. Also, You got Papali'i up against Kikau. Kikau's got that experience and the power there, but he's a big boy too, Papali'i. Liam Martin up against Jacob Preston. He's an up-and-coming player, Jacob Preston. That Liam Martin has a lot of experience there and really breaks his back every time he plays for his New South Wales side and his local Penrith boys. Isaiah Yeo up against Bailey Hayward. Yeah, interesting there. Kurt Mann off the bench, Brad Snyder off the bench, Liam Henry, Harry Hayes, Josh Curran, has let us down in the ATTS lately, and Lauren Patea. Very, very interesting there. And Luke Garner is the last of the interchanges, along with Lachlan Galvin, who, after breaking his duck for Canterbury, had a bit of a mixed game the game before, and they had the bye last week. So let's get on to the thing that's really important for mine. Who's sent me a message? Yeah, Julie. Okay, see you then. All right, Jules. It's the message, yeah, it's just me, blah, 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 that's all you miss your call. Okay, I'm just getting a few messages through, and then we're going to get straight into the TAB. TAB's let Penrith go up at 2.15 here, and Bulldogs $1.70, so a little bit more generosity there. We're 4 hours away from the game at Accor Stadium, and in first position is the Bulldogs on 28 points. They're 11 points in front of Penrith, who they've played 14, and Canterbury still have the bye left, I imagine. Only two losses to the Bulldogs, 7 to Penrith. That's when they were trying to get their stuff together. Okay, let's have a look here. The last time they met, it was Penrith 16 over in a very tight match over Canterbury 10. That was back in the 10th of May last year. But let's go to our anytime try scorers. Geez, this is going to be a hard match. I don't know how you feel about it, ladies and gentlemen, but this could go either way, this game. A lot of people are saying Penrith are just going to keep on putting back-to-back wins. They'll be going for their fourth straight win this week, and they're slowly moving up into that table. Let's have a look here. Starting off the market here, even money Brian Tyler. Oh, that's interesting because it could be a real defensive game. It's the first time I've never seen odds on out of the game. So even the bookmakers and the point setters here on the odds don't really know which way to go. To'o, Kiraz, Jenkins, Toya, all around even money there, $2 and $2.05 for Montoya. Renakama 10 to 10. And you go to Alamonte 225, scored a very lucky try last week, but did a couple of good kicks as well. Bronson Seri 260, he's a little bit skinny there. Dylan Edwards 310, he hasn't scored for some time. Casey McLean looked like scoring last week, but he gave it under Milky Jenkins. We don't really want to start with even money. I'd like to go out a little bit wider with our banker. And what feeling I'm getting here, nothing's truly jumping out at me at this stage because I'm still going over my head who's going to score. Could it be Crichton? I got a feeling I don't really want to stand Connor Tracy out, but I think the first try for Canterbury or Penrith is going to come from broken play, where there's a lost ball and someone picks it up and runs away with it. I just have a feeling about that. I really am stuck here. However, I've really got to stick with a guy that hasn't let us down for a while. He hasn't scored in the last three matches, but it's not bad value here at $2.60. Bronson Sherry, $2.60. He's our first banker. Our second banker is Paul Alamotti, and I think he'll score from broken play for Penrith. So he's the second banker. And I'm going to chuck in our third banker, Connor Tracy, just in case, at 290. Then we're going to go wider at Steve Crichton for our fourth banker at 310. And Jacob Preston is our fifth banker there at 310. And I honestly think you've got to go back to Brian Toto and take the even money as your sixth emergency banker. Honestly, I can't see it happening any other way. Jacob Kiros, who let us down in the last 2 or 3 games, could easily be that guy that picks it up from broken play. I'll still be deciding by the end of tonight who's going to win this game, but I really have to make a decision being on air here. I'm saying Bulldogs in Golden Point. Bulldogs in Golden Point. And it may be a try that decides it instead of a field goal. That's the feeling I'm having. I'm getting some really big crystal ball moments at the moment in my psyche. But on a rating, on a confidence rating for this game, I only give it a 77 out of 100. I'm going to give you these CRs, the confidence rating, so you can know if I'm really confident. Then you can really, if you can't go to 8 games because it's expensive, we're only paying $1.50, $2 a double. Okay, so you have your 2 standouts, then you have your 3 or 4 multis underneath them, and then you're getting your bankers and you're leading your bankers into those second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth leg. Second, third, fourth, fifth, and from both bankers. And if both the bankers get up, and some of them last week did for us in the first half, so we were set. We had like 60 minutes worth of adrenaline rush, and that's what we're after here. Correct? What punter isn't under after NRL support? It's some form of adrenaline rush, which makes you jump out of your seat. Okay, that's what we're all after here, and that's what sport's exciting. But even more exciting when we've got a little bit of punting money on there. So that's why I'm giving you a 77 for this game on confidence rating. It's very, very tough. It was hard enough for me to say that the Bulldogs will win in Golden Point. So there you go, Bulldogs over Penrith there. And it's probably more wishful thinking, if anything, the way that Penrith have got their full side here today. Okay, let's go on to the second match. It is Manly and West Tigers. Manly's come up at $1.47 here. And this is tomorrow at, it looks like 6 o'clock. And there's only the 2 games on the Saturday. By the looks of it, is there really 4? 2, 3, 4. Anyway, tomorrow there's 2, is there? I thought there'd be 3 games tomorrow. All right, but that's 2 games on the Friday, and then the Saturday, 3 games, and 2 games on Sunday. That makes sense because there's no state of origin inhibiting our action at the moment. So let's get on to the Friday night match. It's Manly versus West Tigers, the old grudge match. Manly's coming up at $1.47 and West Tigers at $2.70. So let's go back to the page that we really need here. And it is the NRL page. And we'll go to who's in and who's out. That's going to be really, really important. This has been played at 4 Pines Park, or the old Brookie Oval, with a refurbishment. And the ins and outs. Ins for Manly are Caleb Navali is in, Jake Simpkin, Joey Walsh, Leoi Hapawadi's back. That's interesting. Matthew Lodge, and then you have Michael Cheekham is back. For the Tigers, Charlie Staines is back, Charlie Murray, Kit Lalili and Luke Lalili, the brothers, and Tristan Hope is in. Out, unfortunately, with I think a hamstring strain is Jareem Buller, and he was inches from scoring us at least $150 last week with 2 3-leg parlays there with ATTS. Hamali Olakatawati is out. Of course, he broke his shoulder or had it dislocated in scoring a try. That was another tragedy for us because they disallowed the try as well. And Lachlan Croker is also out. So let's go here. So we'll get rid of this message here, and then we'll move to the TAB. And we'll go straight to the anytime try scorer. So you'd imagine that West Tigers are desperate for a win here. I don't think it's going to be an easy task for Manly. They've got a lot of things to prove. They're even talking about moving away from their coach, Anthony Seibold. They're 10th on the ladder with 6 wins and 8 losses, and 14th on the ladder, Tigers, with 5 wins and 9 losses. So only one more loss there. The last time they played, would you believe, it was the Tigers, but it was at Leichhardt Oval. There's the difference, 34-26. I remember that game being a try-scoring fest with 60 points being scored in the match. I don't know what it'll be a match of that equivalent, but don't be surprised. Let's go to the first-time try scorer here, or any-time try scorer. And this time, the pundits and the bookmakers know exactly what's going on. We've gone back to odds on here. $1.65, Jason Saab. So skinny. They really destroy your value at that odds. Tommy Talau, $1.70, $1.75, Rupert Garrick, all Manly. Clayton Falala, $1.80. Tom Trbojevic, $1.90. Geez, that's skinny for someone who hasn't scored for 5 or 6 matches. Sunia Taruba, $2.05. Gerald Skelton, $2.15. Lalili, $2.20. Charlie Staines, Leo Hopewadi, Tolotau Kola, fairly good odds. Stafford Tower has scored nearly every time we've had him. And I'm going to actually open up the account with Stafford Tower. He's just in the right place at the right time. He's elusive, he's quick, and he's in the centre there, and Tigers always use their flanks. So I'm very, very happy with that. So we're going to start our bank here with Stafford Tower. Last time we stood him out for the banker, he went over straight away, and that was a beautiful way to start. I think something similar to that will happen this time. I am going to lead back to Tolotau Kola. You know I'm a big fan of Tolotau Kola. He'll be our second banker for Manly. And then as we spin it out a little bit wider here, last time Ben Trbojevic went over 4 games ago, we actually had him, and he was great value for us. This time he's a little bit skinny, but he's still $3. So that's going to be a great third banker for us. I want to chuck in Ben Trbojevic. Tommy's still $1.90. You're not going to get anything out of Tommy there. Samuel Afinu's good odds, but hasn't scored for some time at $4.50. Latu Fainu at 5s. How much time is he going to get? I've got a feeling Apisai Coruscant is going to go over here, throwing a dummy from dummy half. Let's put him in as the 4th leg. Apisai Coruscant as the 5th leg. I want to lean towards Ethan Bullimore because he hasn't scored for so long. So let's chuck him in as the 5th leg there, Ethan Bullimore. Trouble is, how much time is he going to get? But I just think it's his time to stand up. And there's a lot of players in Manly who have to stand up. We come back to Dale Cherry Evans as an emergency. I'd be putting him in there as an emergency at $3.75. He has not gone over for some time, and he's had all that darkened pressure since he's been sacked from the Origin side. So he's had all that darkened pressure since he's been sacked from the Origin side. So that's only if you've got a spare couple of dollars, chuck him in with your 2 bankers. Okay? Let's move on to the next match there. I think in another tight one, I'm tipping West Tigers here. West Tigers 1-12. But I would also take Manly as a backup 1-12. I can't see Manly having the most perfect game you've ever seen. It is their time to stand up, but I think Tigers, you can't just ride roughshod over the Tigers at the moment because they are desperately clinging on to whatever they've got left in the season. They've dropped out into that third section, and they definitely don't want another wooden spoon. So I think that desperation will lead to a Tigers victory. And if you want to take head-to-head, at least you're going to get 270. Like the Newcastle Knights last week, we had head-to-head as an emergency backup bet, and we just missed because of the goal kicker was having an off day and missed that one conversion that we needed to pick up $100. All right, the next match on the program is Newcastle and Canberra. And Newcastle is coming up a little bit skinnier than usual at $2.80, and Canberra $1.44. So odds on, but not ridiculously short. And that is going to be, once we go back here, have a look at where they're playing it. I'd imagine it's McDonald's Jones, unless they're moving that game again. Let's just get off this page here. Where's it at? It's at McDonald Jones Stadium. So in front of their home crowd, you would expect the Newcastle Knights to lift here, but they're up against a side that's running second in the comp. But this is the time, if Newcastle Knights are going to get to the 3 playoffs in a row, they need to win 4 or 5 back-to-back games. Is this the one where they stand up against a side that looks like being in the final 5 and having 2 bites of the cherry in the top 8? So I don't know. Let's have a look at the team list and see who's in and who's out. That's one of our most important things. Interesting that Dominic Young came back and moved over from East last week and scored. The ins this time for Knights are Fletcher Hunt. He's back in. Greg Marzu back. Jack Hetherington. Only problem I have with Jack Hetherington is his ball handling. I think he's a guy you've got to have on the burst, definitely. He does a lot of hard work, Hetherington, but just his ball handling skills, I sort of hold my breath every time they mention his name. And it's nothing against him personally. It's just a lot of games that we've lost the Knights this year. It's been the handling errors. So anyway, Jacob Saifides is back, and he's one of their best forwards. And Tyson Gamble is back. I put a lot of crap on Tyson Gamble when he came back, and he played fairly well. He had 1 loss, 1 win since he came back. But Fletcher Sharp is the big out for mine, for Newcastle Knights. He's an outstanding youngster, outstanding up-and-coming player for the Knights. And for anyone, he's the Brett Kenny lookalike, apart from the Sharpie haircut. What do they call it? The mullet. And a few of them are carrying mullets in the Knights. It's some sort of weird thing going on. In for Canberra is Chevy Stewart, Danny Levi, Ethan Sanders, Pasami Solo, and Trey Mooney. Hudson Young is out. Well, that's a big loss too. Very interesting. And they're still missing Somali Tamali. Savuala Tamali, that's no good either. And that's why that Jed Stewart's taken that position. I thought, although they got away with a narrow victory over the Tigers last week, they did enough. That was one of those dirty wins for Canberra. And I've got a feeling this may be another dirty win for them. Bradman Best up against Chris. James Schiller, once he gets irons out a few immature things out of his game, James Schiller, he's going to be a mad asset to this side, to the Knights. Up against Xavier Savage, it's a bit of a mismatch there. Savage has got a bit more elusivity. Jackson Hastings up against Ethan Strange. Ethan Strange has been playing. He's been having a season of his life. Jamal Fogarty up against Jack Cogger. Cogger's lifted a gear, and I'm glad he's in the side alongside of Hastings. I think this is the side. If the forwards play exceptionally well, the ball handling is good, I think this is the side that could cause a massive boil over here. I don't really want to tip against Canberra, but I'm going to tell you now, if I do, I'll be still cheering the Knights on at some stage. You know, I'm a crazy Knights fan here. on every points a winner, and I have been for many, many years now. I just think this could be the game. I'm going to say it also may go down to Golden Point, and I'm going to tip Canberra 1-12, winning in extra time here. But they've just got too much firepower for mine. But I also see the Knights standing up hardcore against them. But it's going to come down to handling errors. If Canberra hold the ball better than Newcastle, they'll beat them. They won't even go to Golden Point. But anyway, that's what I think, and there's my tip. But I'd be having 1-12 both sides there. Definitely Newcastle 1-12 and Canberra 1-12 if you're playing margins, or if you're thinking of having some multi tips outside of the anytime try scorer, where you're picking lines and halftime totals and all that. So let's have a look here, and we'll go to the TAB, see what value we can stir up for you here. I mean, 280 is fairly good still for Newcastle to cause that boil over head to head. There's nothing wrong with that. And even if you took them, you wouldn't get 280, but you might get still a fairly decent price if you get them to put an extra 10 points onto the Newcastle side. You still might get a fairly good odd there. But anyway, let's have a look. The last time they played, would you believe, it was at GIO Stadium, and Knights beat Canberra Raiders 16-12. Is that an omen? And it was the 7th of the 7th. So it was a little bit later in the year last year. Let's go to our anytime try scorer here. Xavier Savage opens up the favouritism on the banking, $1.75 for anytime try scorer. Stewart at $1.80. Then we finally get out. So there's only two that are odds on. We finally get our even money chance at Dominic Young at 2-1. Chevy Stewart, who's not Ricky Stewart's son, is 220. James Schiller 230. That's pretty good actually for Schiller. Just his ball handling sometimes lets him down, but he's got a lot of potential. I still am worried that Fletcher Sharp is not there because he's just so elusive and so dangerous. But they haven't got the kids screaming outside playing games. I don't know whether that's coming through my headphones anyway. Anyway, it wouldn't be great to be a kid again, but we're not. And we're going to look at the value here. 290 Bradman Best. That's not bad. He scored a double last week from two beautiful kicks from his captain and from Bonga, and they were great tries. Ethan Strange still good value, but a little bit skinnier for mine there at 275. Zach Hosting threes. He looked like scoring last week. Tom Starling, who got us a beautiful double last weekend, scored a freakish try with his little rubber. I think could be value again as well. Jamal Fogarty 6-1. I don't want to stand him out. I'm going to come back to Jamal Fogarty. Joseph Tarpany 6-1, and also Tom Starling is 6-1. All right, Jack Cogger 650. There's a lot of value here, but Cogger hasn't scored in the last 5-6 games, and then he hasn't always played in first grade. So there's a little bit of a risk there where we really want the prolific try scorers here, if we can. Dylan Lucas, is he going to be the one that gets that ball on the burst at that angle like Britton Nakora does? Dylan Lucas, 350, 310. Kalen Ponga is the best value you'll see for a long time. Kalen Ponga, 310. But I don't want to stand him out fully. I'm gonna go out in a wing here, and because I'm tipping Canberra narrowly, I'm gonna have Ethan Strange. Can you believe that 2 times he scored, which is not the last match, but the 2 before we didn't have him, and we had him for 3 games before that. I'm going, as they say, onto the grouter. I'm going to bet that he just had that missed a couple of tries last week by that much. I think he may be the one that breaks the tough Newcastle defence. So I'm going to say Ethan Strange is our first banker at 275. Yes, he's a bit skinnier, but I think they put him a bit skinny because they know something like I do. Well, I'm just guessing here, but my intuition is telling me that will happen. The second banker, I'm going to say Dylan Lucas scores an absolute blitzkrieg try. He's in the right position at the right time, just off the edge. Dylan Lucas for Newcastle at 350. Then we're going to swing back to my favourite player of all time, Bradman Best. And where are you, Bradman? Yeah, Bradman Best at 290 is our third leg. Zach Hosking for Canberra is our fourth leg at $3. Now I'm tossing up. I'm going to put Ponga in as our fifth leg at 310, but I also like Jamal Fogarty at $6. I'm going to have them both. You decide what you want there. And if you like, I'll tell you what, if you like Joseph Tarpany or Starling, they're great players and they score not every match, but every second match they tend to score. They're two of their best forwards in the game. So there you go. That is that game done and dusted. And the third game on that's the two done for the Friday. We go on to the three matches on the Saturday. The first is the Brisbane Stallions, the Broncos at $1.53 versus Warriors 250, playing away from home. I watched that game again this morning for the second or third time, and they just got out-tackled by Penrith. Out-tackled, and every time Halasima went to run on the burst, they just stopped him short of the line. So it was an outstanding defence effort from Penrith last week against the Warriors. But let's have a look. The last time they met, it was 20-18, but that was at Go Media Stadium. And that was Warriors just beating the Broncos 20-18. That was back on the 19th of April this year. It has been. That's right. Yeah, that was a narrow one. Broncos hadn't fully hit their straps, but if you saw them, they come back against Cronulla last week. Cronulla only opened the door slightly for them, and Broncos, the good Broncos that we know, stood up and just run roughshod over them and got up in the last stride. Okay, here we have anytime try scorer. I just want to double check that this is being held at Suncorp just for my own benefit here. Let's have a look. Make sure we're getting all the information we need. It is at Suncorp Stadium. Double check the weather because there is a little bit of inclement weather coming on the late side of the weekend, seemingly. Plus, don't forget a lot of these balls have got dew on them. They are much better balls to handle in those sort of conditions. But the ball handling is most important when the competition is so close. It is most important. And losing it 3 or 4 times inside your own red zone or your own 30 is really, really bad news and usually ends up in a side getting momentum and then really putting the axe through you. So let's have a look here. $1.58, the sports bet. Let's look at players in and players out. Warriors 239 away from home. So ins and outs. Brent Tulty is in for Broncos. Dean Mariner, Jaden Hunt, and Selwyn Cobbo is in. But I would imagine Selwyn will be playing in the reserves as the first emergency. Ins for the Warriors is I'm waiting for Rocco Berry to come back. Yes, it says he's here. It's one of my favourite players. Edward Cossey is back. Bunty Afoa. Kurt Capewell back. Fantastic. Tane Tuapiki. Every time they say he's back, he doesn't get in the starting lineup. He's one of my favourite little whippets. And Tanner Boyd. Out for the Warriors, unfortunately, is Maiola Graham Tolfa. He scored a great try in the last dying seconds in that match last week. against Penrith, and Dylan Watini Zalesniak. He had a bad injury last week, and that was really unfortunate. He was limping really, really badly. Okay, so let's spin over from there and have a look at the matchups. Reece Walsh up against Clockstad. Clockstad had a good match for 75% of the game last week, but it just didn't work out for him. Karapani up against Cossie. It's interesting. Adam Pompey against Katoni Staggs. I did notice Katoni Staggs' elusive running caused so much trouble for Cronulla in that second half. Adam Pompey's going to have to be on his best behaviour here. Shibasaki against Rocco Berry. I think that's a really good matchup. Then you got Jesse Arthurs up against one of the most experienced Kiwis in the land, Tuivasa Sheck. So he might teach Jesse Arthurs a few tricks there. Ezra Mann up against Harris Tavita. It's a pretty good matchup, that one, the two young fellows. Adam Reynolds up and had an outstanding game. I must say he was so elusive last week, Adam Reynolds. Will he stand up here? Luke Metcalf looked like he was sporting a little bit of an injury. Might have just been cramp in the second part of that game against Penrith last week. Is up against the elusive Adam Reynolds. So that's a really tough match for Luke. Corey Jensen up against Fisher Harris. Ooh, two big boys, but I think Fisher Harris might rough him up a bit. Corey Pakes, who's always dangerous from dummy half, up against Wade Egan. Wade Egan can handle that. Neokore Murata is back up against Payne Huss. He was a big loss for the Kiwis last week, in fact. Kirk Catewell up against Pia Kura. And that's a really good matchup, that one. Jacob Laban. He is an outstanding player. We missed him 2 or 3 weeks ago and he went over. He went over last week and we missed him again because we had Halasima. We couldn't have both the forwards, but we'll be looking at him very closely to go in again here. I just think he's full of talent. He's got speed and he's strong as hell. And Patrick Carrigan against Aaron Clark, who's been playing outstanding. And then on your interchange bench, you got Walters, Hetherington, Willison, and Jack Grogowski for Broncos. Then you have Terry Martin Ford, who came on and scored a lucky try last week. Via Munga, who's another monster. And Lika Halasima, one of my favourite players, is also on the interchange bench. And I still can't see where they've slotted in Selwyn Cobbo. Yeah, he is on the replacement bench here under the reserves. So whether he gets the run is questionable. If he does, it'll be interesting to see what position they put him at. So he seems to be on the outers of the Broncos at the moment. So let's have a look here on the TAB. And I really want to tip the Warriors. I really, really do to bounce back because they really need to. This is an extremely important game for both of them. I think it's going to be another classic match. I think we've got some tough matches over this weekend, and this is one of them. This is not going to, I can't see this being a walkover for either side. I really can't. I'd be extremely surprised if it was. So let's, as I'm thinking of who I want to tip, and I really want to tip the Broncos here, especially being at Suncorp, but I'm still, my heart is saying go for the Warriors here. But anyway, let's go on the try scorers and see if that gives us more intuition to where we're leading on our tips here. The value comes up, and it's very short here for Jesse Arthurs. He's always long odds on, $1.70. He hasn't scored for 4 matches, which is interesting. Josiah Karapani went over twice last week, $1.85. Selwyn Cobbo, 85. Hasn't scored for a long time because of what's happening. Dean Mariner, $1.85. Edward Cozy, $1.95. Geez, there are a lot of skinny guys here. Roger Tuivasa Sheck, $2.15. Geez, that's good value. That's usually his odds on Tuivasa Sheck. Tane Tuapiki, $2.15. How much time is he going to get? This is the thing. Reece Walsh, $2.20. Shibasaki, good value for Reese Walsh. Ezra Mann, 250, not bad. Katoni Staggs, 260, not taking much of a chance with him. Rocco Berry, 325. I like that. That's nice and succulent and juicy. And just looking down here, Halasemas. Wow. Halasema is 550. Geez, that's good value. Corey Pake's $6. I'm just looking, and these guys scored most recently, both of them, one for either side. So Capewell hasn't scored since the Origin. That was an amazing effort from Capewell. And let's have a look. Ricky hasn't scored for about 5 matches. Nickel Clockstadt, he let us down last week, but he still had a very good game. Katoni Staggs, I'm feeling I want to lead with him here against the Warriors. And I think being so elusive, I might stick with him and Ezra Mann. So, yeah, we're going to have the two bankers here, Ezra Mann at 250 and Katoni Staggs at 260. They're both very good value bankers. So you really got 5-2 there for both players. Ezra Mann and Katoni Staggs, both Brisbaneites, or I like to call them Stallions, but it's the Broncos. I'm chucking in here for pure value here, and it's great to see him back. Rocco Berry at 325. Then I'm going to go out to Jake Laban for Warriors also at 425. It'd be remiss of me to leave out Lika Halasema. How much time he gets, we don't know. I think he's the one that could break the Broncos' defence because both sides are going to throw it around a bit at 550. And as an emergency guy at those odds, as a pure emergency, I want to lean back towards the Broncos here. Shibasaki at 240 is your sixth banker there as an emergency. Okay, so that game's done and dusted there. I'll be tipping the Brisbane Broncos by 1-12. Although my heart says Warriors. My head's nearly saying Warriors. But I think Broncos now have to put back-to-back wins if they're the real deal. But I could easily see Warriors putting on 2 or 3 early tries and holding on for dear life by the end in a very tight struggle. So let's go to the next match before we get laboured down too much. This is an interesting, hard match. It's the clash of the ages for the old hatred grand final of, what was it, 77? Parramatta and St George. That was without Illawarra's inclusion, of course, but to me, it's still the old rivalry of St George versus Parramatta. Because most of the, although the conglomerate of those two sides coming together, Illawarra Steelers and St George Dragons, most of the good players came straight up from Illawarra anyway. So it was a perfect match. So to me, it's the old grudge match. And it's interesting that St George has come up short here at $1.65 and Parramatta 2.25. So the bookmakers they're like me. They don't know whether to take trust in St George or Parramatta, who's getting a little bit of form together. They were a bit stiff 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, and they're playing out of their skin. And last week they played so much better without Mitchell Moses. For the first time, they played really well without him, and they need to because he's injured for some time now, Moses. So let's go and have a look at who is in and who is out, because that's going to really play into our anytime try score tipping and also what happens in the game. So team lists and ins and outs. Right. I'm crossing my fingers here for St George because Christian Tuapoloto has been mentioned that he's in with his hamstring. The hamstrings aren't easy to come back, first run back from the spell like a racehorse. You need to really see how they go because he came back a little bit early and he was off within the first half to a blotter and redone the hamstring. So Fingers crossed for Tuapoloto there. Corey Allen is in, the big boy from the Illawarra. Jaden Sewer is back. That's a big plus for St George. Lachlan Ilias, hot and cold player. Valentine Hones, a lot of experience there. And Vilami Fafita. Now, in for the Parramatta Eels is Brendan Hands. Dylan Brown's back. That's a big plus. Dylan Brown is back. Dan Keir, or Kerr, however you want to, it's spelled Keir, Keir, Keir. Dan Keir, Ronald Volkman, Samuela Loizu, and Tony Matali. Out is Riley Smith, who's been good at dummy half, and Will Penasini. He must have got a. Oh, that's right. He did that. He did an illegal tackle. He must have got time. Will Penasini, after scoring those 2 tries, one of them he did something bodgy. Yeah, and out for the Dragons is Tyrell Sloan, who's now on the outers of the club seemingly, and Hamey Selly is also out for the Dragons. So at least we know, and let's have a look at the matchups there. At least we know who's in and who's out. And let's have a look here. Just get rid of the ins and outs and move this here. Gutho up against Iongi. That's a pretty good matchup, but the captain there, I think he's going to teach Iongi a few things, but he's an outstanding up-and-coming player here. Corey Allen, interesting, up against Zach Lomax. His old team. This is going to be interesting. Moses Suli up against Sam Rani. Young boy Sam Rani is improving. Valentine Hayden's up against Sean Russell. A little bit of a mismatch there on experience. Christian Tuapoloto is in. So keep your fingers crossed, St George fans. Up against Adam Carr. That's a great matchup, isn't it? King Togia up against Dylan Brown. Well, I know where my money's going on there with Dylan Brown. Kyle Flanagan up against Dean Hawkins. Young kid Dean Hawkins scored a very, very lucky try off the post last week, off the padding. Yeah, Kyle Flanagan might have a little bit of experience on him there. And then the forwards, Emery Guller up against Jack Williams. Jack Williams has been playing outstanding every week since Parramatta's really got their stuff together. Joey Luzak, who scored last week, up against Damien Cook, who also scored a couple of games ago. David Clemmer up against Junior Polo. Toby Couchman up against Tulagi. Jaden Sewer up against Cortoga. And I like Jaden Sewer, that he's back in the game. And Jack DeBellin, a very strong defender, up against another very strong player for Parramatta, Jamie Hopgood. This is really tough. Jacob Little, he could make the difference here, Jacob Little, because I think the game's going to be tight for the most part. Both teams are hungry. Well, St George have to be hungry. They can't do this pussyfooting around anymore. And their halves have to play well. I just think the fact that Dylan Brown's got the experience over Togia, that could make the difference here. But Jacob Little is a game breaker. And so is Dylan Walker. He's up against him off the interchange bench there. The first interchange, second interchange, Hamish Stewart and Matt Dury. And then Valami Fafita is the third interchange with Charlie Gleimer, who scored the try of his life and got off the nudie run last week. And Luciana Leilua, the big fella, up against Joe Pali'i. Okay, so we've seen all we need to see there. Let's go to the markets as we knock this game out. Let's go to the markets and see where the value lies. Okay, so currently running 11th is St George on 16 points, 5 wins, 8 losses. On 15th, only 2 points behind them, mind you. So this is going to be a grudge match. And it's an important match for both of them, but especially Parramatta trying to get off the bottom there. 5 wins, 9 losses for Parramatta. So last time they met, can you believe it? It was 23 Parramatta, and it was this year, 22 St George. I think it was that game they shouldn't have lost, and it was a compact stadium. So this is in Wollongong, is it not? I just need to double check that because that could make the difference here. It is at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong. Hmm. Wow, this is tough match, guys. So let's go over to the TAB again, and we'll go straight to the anytime try scorers and give you the marker on that. Let's have a look. Christian Tuapoloto at $1.70. As I said, he passed all his tests and he came on and he ran off the first game back. So I wouldn't be standing him out. And plus, that's against our ethos here. We don't tip odds on for any of our standout leagues unless it's a rare exception. Clint Gutherson, 215 starts the even money boys off with Zach Lomax. Everything else is odds on. Lawson, Allen, Josh Adokar, and Tuapoloto. Valentine Holmes, 260. Iongi, 290. But 290. Moses Suley, 325, hasn't gone over for a long, long time. Sean Russell, who scores every second match, 325 was a bit of a lucky try for him last week, just in the right place at the right time. King Togia scored last time before the bye. Is 350. I don't know whether he's going to get around Brown, to be honest with you. Brown at 375 hasn't scored for the last 3 or 4 matches, but scored twice back-to-back before that. Kilmer Talagi, 4-1. Kotoga, 4s. Jacob Little, 475. Depends how much game time he gets. I think, I don't want to lead out with him, but we're going to come back to him because I think he's going to open this game wide open. And he needs to because he hasn't scored for a while. Cook at 475. He's not your prolific try scorer, so we don't want to truly go with Damien Cook there. You wouldn't be surprised to see him go over because he's really been playing the best of his ability at this stage of his career. Clint Gutherson, 215, hasn't scored for the last 2 matches, and we've had him for both of them. All right. I am tipping St George only because of the home ground advantage of Wollongong. I'm tipping St George here in a close one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Parramatta wins as well. Can't see 13 plus, but I'll definitely go 1-12 St George. And as a backup, I'll have Parramatta 1-12 because it's not out of the question of them winning this game as well. There's a few things more so on their advantage, and the disadvantage is playing down in the gong. So for mine, that home ground advantage, they might get a few decisions definitely go their way, as most home sides do. So, okay, let's pick out our first banker here. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to tick Jack Williams at 8-1 as our first banker here for Parramatta. 8-1. You will not get better value anywhere in Sydney. If he goes over, you'll be going, man, we've got to follow EPAW because they're just pulling stuff out of their out of the rear to pull out that one. Where'd that come from? But I'm a big fan of Williams, and he just missed last week, just missed the score, and he scored for us the game before that. So we're going to go Williams as our banker, but then we're going to pull it in a little bit skinnier, and we're going to say Dylan Brown for Parramatta at 375 as our second banker. Then we're leading over to St George because I've tipped St George 1-12. Jaden Sewer at 375. Jaden Sewer at 375. And then Jacob Little at 475. How much time he gets, we don't know. So that will be our third leg. Our fourth leg, we're going to break the rule here and chuck in Josh Adokar at $1.80. He is due for a try. He only scored 3 games ago. You can have him or Lomax there as your fourth banker. But our fifth banker, I want to come back to St George since we're tipping them. And usually we tip Gutherson or Valentine Holmes. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. It's Valentine Holmes to score for St George there, along with Jacob Little. So there you go. That's what I think for that game. But don't be surprised, Parramatta, if you pull one out there, because you're going to need to if you're any chance in this competition or skimming into the final eight. That's why I think St George. I could easily put in Tuapoloto, but I'm really scared that he's going to be a bit stiff. I guess he's passed all his tests with his hamstring, but it really worries me that he broke down in his first return match after the hammy, and it happened to Bradman Best. The hammy went again. I'm worried about him on the weekend. In fact, as this colder weather is here, hopefully the masseur gets right into that muscle with the oils before they run out, of course. Okay, then before we get laboured down into that match, we're going to head over to the next match. Well, I haven't missed one here, but I know the last two games that we're doing, the penultimate one is Melbourne versus Cronulla. Melbourne's come up at $1.35. Now, I'd imagine this would be at Amy Stadium or Amy Park Stadium. Cronulla at 3.25. I've got a feeling Peter Connors will be tipping Cronulla here against Storm. He's been really riding Cronulla hard, like a bull rider, I tell you. Okay, let's have a look here. And he was a bit unlucky last week, the way they got run down by the Broncos in that second half. But to me, it was pure class that led to that. I don't think it was Cronulla fading like everyone thought. On my second and third replay of that game again this morning. All right, let's have a look here. It's at 2 o'clock, so it's a bit early. Make sure that doesn't get you with your pants down and that you forget to put your anytime try score doubles and parlays on. Let's have a look at the team list. Who's in and out is very important. In for the Storm is Avid Vata. What the hell? Sorry, Tivalu, Atilavu, Lasardi. Oh, I know Lasardi, yeah. I just didn't know his first name. Joe Chan, Kane Bradley. Be playing on the wing if he gets the run. Keegan Russell Smith and Xavier Coates is back. So that's a big inclusion for the Storm there. In for Cronulla is Chris Viella, Jaden Beryl, pretty good defender, Jaden Beryl, Ni Hawaii Puru. You think he had a bit of a run last week in that get loss against the Broncos, and Oregon Kafusi is back. That's interesting. I thought Kafusi was out for the season. That might be the Dolphins' Kafusi. There's quite a few Kafusis we need to worry about. Out for the Stormers, Jack Howarth. He's been having a few issues, Jack. And if I don't know, I think if I was Jack, I'd be wearing some extra protective gear when he comes back. But anyway, let's have a look at the matchups here. It's Ryan Pappenhausen against William Kennedy. That's a pretty good even match there. Faialogu against Katoa. Real dumb thing that Katoa did last week, which definitely disadvantaged the Cronulla Sharks and fatigued them in that second part of the game. Although I think they might have scored with one player less. That was a dumb thing to do. You need to just stop putting your foot out and tripping people, especially when it's the game was virtually over at halftime there. So Faialogu up against Katoa. I know who are back for speed. I'd go for Faialogu over Katoa. He's a little whippet, that guy. Though he's very quick, Katoa, in the clear. Grant Anderson up against Jesse Raymond. Oh, look, Raymond's been hot and cold this year. Nick Meaney against Sifa Sifa Talakai. Oh, that brings back pain from last week because we were going to stand him out. Xavier Coates up against Mulatalo. Very interesting match, that one. Munster against Braden Trendle. Well, we know who gets the experience not there. Jerome Hughes up against Nicholas Hine. Well, I'll back Jerome Hughes all the time, but Nicholas Hine, when he has a good one, it's a good game. Stefano Utokomano up against Fanua Blake. That's a great matchup. Two giants. Harry Grant against Blake Brayley, both work animals. Grant with amazing experience. He is the captain for this week too. Josh King against Kafusi, good matchup. Bloor against Nick Nakora, both outstanding players. I think Nakora was very unlucky not to score last week, and we needed him to score. Teague Wilton up against Elise Katoa. I don't know whether it's a mistake or not, because I think he was injured in Teague Wilton in the second part of that game last weekend. I'm surprised he's back from injury. Okay. McGuinness up against Trent Leary. Keep your ears posted on the radio to see if there's any late changes. I'd be surprised if Teague Wilton's going to get the run there. And your two main interchange benches for Cronulla and Melbourne. Tyron Wishart is going to have it twice, coming from 14 there for the Storm. Daniel Atkinson, good player for the Sharks. And Jesse Colquhoun and Alec McDonald, big Kamakamika, and Toby Rudolph, Hamuan Ueli for the Sharks, and big Asofa Solomona. Wow, they've both got fairly good benches. Okay, let's go over. There's some really good matchups there. Let's go over to the TAB and pick out our second last game here. $1.35 and $3.25. Do you go Cronulla for the major upset at $3.25? Could easily happen. But last time they met, round 11 this year, it was the Storm's defeat. It was Cronulla 31, 5-point victory over Storm 26. It was a very, very interesting match. I've got a feeling that was at Shark Park too. First time try, anytime try scorer here. The market's led by Xavier Coates at $1.65. And then we have Kane Bradley at $1.75. Katoa $2.10. Grant Anderson $2.50. Nick Meaney $2.75. Talakai 3-1. William Kennedy $3.25. Geez, that killed us last week. The times he's let us down. Tyron Wishart $3.75. Lasardi, Big Solomona $4.25. How much time will he get? That's the question. Karen Munster hasn't scored for about 5 or 6 games for the Storm, with his commitment to the Origin, but scored a cracker in the Origin game, the second one. Jerome Hughes hasn't let us down the last 3 or 4 games. Let's chuck him in. It is down at Amy Stadium, is it not? Is it not there, sir? Where is it? It is at Amy Park. Yeah, there you go. So let's stand out. He let us down last time, but he was so close to scoring. Let's stand out Elise Katoa and Hughes, Jerome Hughes there, $3.25. That's a really good price. And even Elise Katoa is $2.75. Then we'll swing over to Cronulla, who is so hard to catch when you're talking about anytime try scorers. Harry Grant, yeah, for Melbourne. I don't think they're going to let him get away with what he did last week, scoring at a dummy half again. When he does that, a bit like Jacob Little, he won't do it 2 weeks in a row. So let's chuck in. I don't want to chuck in a reserve here, Daniel Atkinson. I'm thinking about it, but I don't want to fully entertain that. You don't know how much time they're going to get. Same with Tyron Wishart. I'll be going for 4 off the bench. So it was Britton Nakora as the third leg. Britton Nakora, and the fourth leg we're going to go for Talakai. I missed him last week, but he's such a beast, and I think they're working to the flanks all the time, and he's playing in the centre there, Talakai. So I think he'll be our fourth leg. And our fifth leg, let's come back to, I want to say Ryan Pappenhausen. He hasn't scored for 4 or 5 matches. Let's chuck in Grant Anderson there for the Melbourne Storm as our fifth leg. I can't have Pappenhausen. If he goes over, he goes over. We just have to hope for Melbourne to score more. So, yeah, Lisa, I'm just doing my program. I'm in the middle of my program. I'm here. If you want to come over for a cup of tea, cup of coffee, you're quite welcome to. I'm just in the middle of my program. All right. Speak shortly. Okay, so let's have a look here to the last match. As I said, I'll be tipping Melbourne there in a very, very close one. I'd be happy if I tip Cronulla as well. I wouldn't be scared that that's a scary bet. I really wouldn't. But because it's at Amy and it's during the day, that's when Melbourne usually fire. But I think they're going to have to really be on their best behaviour. Cronulla could easily catch them with their pants down. Okay, let's come over here. Um, let's have a look here to the last game. And it's at 4 o'clock, so the next one will probably be at 6 o'clock. Rugby League, let's change pages here. The last game is Gold Coast and North Queensland. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock, like I thought. Gold Coast coming up at 2:15. North Queensland at $1.70. Last time they played, we'll have a look at that in a second. It was, would you believe, Gold Coast 18, North Queensland 50. Crikey, that was a thrashing. I think we did really well with that because we had most of the try scorers. So that was a really good pickup for us there. But this is a different side now. Geez, North Queensland were so disappointing. We have to have a look at the ins and outs, and I'll tell you why. Because after my complaint last week, I think there's been a few changes from Todd Payton, and I don't know whether he's listened to me or not. I doubt it, but I wouldn't be the only one that saw that Jackson Purdue playing out of position is is absolute crap. And I think he's back into the centres where he's most lethal, and he usually scores every match. So let's just double check that before we have a look at the anytime try scorer. And we really need to have a look. Have a look at the weather there for the weekend for the Gold Coast because it can get very wet, and that's going to even this match up between Gold Coast and North Queensland. Although North Queensland, you think would bounce back. Gold Coast have got a lot to play for, haven't they? But so this is another match where you think it's tough for both teams here. But in saying that, they're not going to lay down, and you would think their backs would be up after last week. Let's have a look at that very important information I needed from the NRL website. Who is in and out? Let's just close the page on me. And let's go down to the last match and look at the team lists as we finish on our last match here. And this is important. If you're in front from your betting over the weekend, Roosters have got the bye, of course. Team list. I met a lovely lady in the pool today. She's been battling breast cancer. She had two kids. I lost my a beautiful wife to breast cancer, but she battled on for 8 to 10 years. It might have been 9 to 10 years, where it went away and came back again, unfortunately. But there are some success stories as well. So she's one of the success stories, and I believe, speaking of the Roosters, that her husband works for the Roosters, and he's very, very supportive, of course. So, but she's a lovely girl, and she does her exercises that she needs to in the water. Very, very friendly, young girl. Horrible to see that she's fighting the cancer, but she's well on top of it at this stage with all the treatments behind her now. Okay, so let's have a look at the team list here. And this is most important, the matchups. Ins and outs. Ins for Titans is De Groot. He's a pretty good player when he subbed out there for in the in the fullback role. He was pretty good. Sean Moloney is in, and Simpkins is back. Brian Kelly back. Interesting. And Arama Howe. Jake Clifford is in. Caden Lyles, Marley Butungame, and Reece Robson is in. And Ruben Cotter. That was what killed the North Queensland side against Roosters last week. Having those two players originally announced in the team after the Origin, and then having late withdrawals. Roosters just ran roughshod over them and took full advantage of that disadvantage for the Cowboys there. So let's see if he's. Yes, he has. Thank you, Peyton. Thank his favourite role of number 3 there, alongside of Zach Laybut. So coming into the 5'8", he never should have been in the 5'8" role, because he's no good just distributing. He needs the ball on the burst through the gap. Purdue. Jake Clifford. And I don't think Jake Clifford should have been sacked from the team anyway. I think you've got to give the guy a chance. And hopefully Dearden doesn't get monstered like he did last week. I think he'll be standing up here when he knows everything's on the line for Cowboys here. And that's why I'll probably end up tipping them, even though it's at the Gold Coast home. Let's have a look here. AJ Brimson up against Scott Drinkwater. Khan Pereira up against Derby. Fafita up against Purdue. Philip Sami's let us down 4 weeks in a row now. I can't keep on having him. And he'll probably go over. Zach up against Zach Laybut. Fitzgibbon up against Talangi. Kieran Foran up against Clifford. Kieran with all the experience. This is a tough game. Tom Weaver, Tom Dearden. I know who I'd prefer there. And then the forwards, Fotowaki had a big game in the Origin. Jordan McLean. Reece Robson up against Sam Verrills, who's a very good defender. Not as good as Robson, though. Campbell Gillard against McIntyre. A lot of experience there. Randall, one of my favourite forwards, along with Bo Fillmore. Jack John Bateman there. Bo Fillmore up against Nanai. And Tino Fasawawali up against Ruben Cotter there. Replacements are Alik Wienke, Harrison Edwards, Jamin Jolliffe, Cleese Haas, Griffin Neem, Thomas McKaylee, and the final interchanges, Isaac Fasamawali and Cohen Hess. All right, so let's have a look here before we wrap it up today, and go and put our bets on, because the game's only about 3.5 hours away. NRL, let's have a look here. We lost the page for a second. As I said, head-to-head, there's nothing wrong with having a Gold Coast at 2:15. It really isn't, especially being at is it the GIO Stadium they call it? No, Seabus Super Stadium in the Gold Coast, yeah. Okay, so last time they played, as I said, it was a thrashing to North Queensland. I can't see that happening this time. There's too much on the line for both sides. But you never know. They've got enough attacking players. Both teams actually have. So let's have a look here. The value, it's $1.70 Talangi with Khan Pro $1.65. Then you go out to the markets, Fitzgibbon, odds on, Braden Burns, odds on, Derby, odds on. Derby shouldn't be odds on. Scott Drinkwater, 240. He let us down last game. Fafita, 250. He's let us down the last 2 games. Purdue, 250. We may even lead out with Purdue now that he's back to his favourite position. Tom Dearden, 3-1. Got a feeling he's going to score. And Chris Randall, another great value that we had last week. I'm going to stand out Tom Dearden here as our banker, throwing a mad dummy and going himself, and then putting over one of my favourite up-and-coming players, Jackson Purdue. So our two bankers are Tom Dearden, $3. That's great value. Jackson Purdue, $2.50. A little bit skinnier than I would have preferred him, but he's back to his favourite position and the bookies haven't forgotten about it. Scott Drinkwater, we're going to chuck into fifth, but let's go to our third and spin it over to the Gold Coast Titans. And I'll just have a little sip here as I'm looking at these odds. Lemon, keep your lemon up all the way through winter. Talangi, $1.70. I don't really want to chuck that in, apart from having it as an emergency like we did last week. Even though he was our standout, he was the only reason why we stood him out as the banker, and he just went over it by an inch, was because he was even money. But at odds on, you can still chuck him in with maybe your three-legged parlays. But your two legs, you're not going to get much. You have to have them a lot more, and we haven't got the bank to keep on rolling here. Okay, let's chuck in for our third leg here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to chuck in AJ Brimson. AJ Brimson as our third leg. Our fourth leg, we're going to chuck in Scott Drinkwater. He let us down last week. I'm giving you one more chance. And our fifth and sixth leg, if I don't put him in, he's going to score against him because he's only up against Labour. So I'm going to chuck in Philip Sami for the last time. Philip Sami is the fifth leg there with Dearden and Purdue as the bankers. And if you wanted to chuck either of my favourite two forwards in there, in Bo Fermor as an emergency for value, and Chris Randall, I wouldn't laugh at you. I might, if I've got money coming into that last match, I will do that myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for staying with us for an hour and a bit today, because we had to get those 8 games out. Not easy to cover, especially when there's so much to go over. Really important to check the weather. If the weather's wet, always half your bets. Okay, and as I said, the highest rating game there, the lowest rating game is the one tonight. It's only a 67 CR, which is confidence rating. But that last game, I think, is the value one. It's probably a 77 rating. And I would say, looking at the other games, the Newcastle-Canberra game with the anytime try scorers, the Penrith Bulldogs game is a 67 rating. The Manly West Tigers is confidence rating. That game there, I think, is a 80 rating. It's pretty high. The Newcastle-Canberra game, that's could go any way, that one, is back down to about 76 confidence rating. Brisbane and Warriors, I think this is the highest one, 85%. I'm very confident with that one. The Parramatta and St George one, I'm also confident with that one. That's a 90% CR rating there. Dolphins and South, I don't think we even covered them, Dolphins and South, which was the Saturday match. My apologies. I might post them up because this is taking too long, because it's been such a hard round to decide. We will go over that South and Dolphins match. I'll leave them up as a post to all you punters, but I can't go back and do it now. We've gone past our bedtime here, and I've got to connect with a few people that have contacted me whilst they've been online here. So we will leave that posting of our anytime try scorers and our margins for the Dolphins and South match. I didn't realise I jumped over it until now. The Melbourne and Cronulla game, I'm fairly confident with that, but it's really only about a 75% rating. And as I promised you before, the Gold Coast and North Queensland, I'm fairly confident with that one with the 80% rating there. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go and run some errands now. Good luck, and hopefully we've got a lot of money to talk about when we do our review, either on Monday afternoon, because I have my 2 office suspensions on Monday and Tuesday. So if I don't do it on Monday because of my work I have to do, I will do it on Monday night. I promise you that. So we'll go over the review and see how much money we made over the weekend. Best of punting, may the best sides win. Keep your eye on the weather and keep your money in your pocket until you're confident enough. Follow those tips, because we're going for 3 or 4 straight weeks in a row here where we've got money in the bank. We're slowly building it up as we get to these harder and harder matches. Good luck. Speak to you next time. Subscribe, like, and contact that little bell and put all. So you'll be able to see, and I promise you, you'll be able to see all the information that you need to see, and that it's any information I need to give you, like the game I missed with the South and Dolphins. I'll be posting that tonight before I wrap up. Okay, guys, good luck to the Dogs tonight. Hopefully they scrape over the line. It's going to be a tough ask against Penrith, but I think if you're the serious front runners of the competition, you need to win this game. Bye for now. Axel Phillips.